So I want to thank everyone for being here, and I really also want to acknowledge my colleagues and thank you for your dedicated service to children in our state and in our community. And I do want to focus our attention now on girls and the things that matter to girls. Our direct experience and our research paints a haunting picture of what's happening to girls in our state and in our local community. In the Duval County school system, last year, 1 in 3 girls in middle school contemplated suicide. 1 in 3 girls. In high school, 1 in 4 girls contemplated suicide. Girls walk through the world very differently and have very different experiences than boys do. And as a community and as a state, we respond to our girls very differently. And we particularly respond to girls in the juvenile justice system very differently, where they are given much harsher penalties for far less serious offenses than boys. In fact, last year, 1 out of 4 girls in the state of Florida were incarcerated for a non-law violation of probation. That's a technical violation like running away, curfew violations, truancy. 1 in 4 girls were locked up for a technical violation of probation compared to 1 in 10 boys. What's wrong with that picture? Study after study shows us that when we send our girls away to residential razor wire facilities, we further exacerbate their unmet needs. So what are those unmet needs of girls, and how are they different from boys? We know that girls have greater reports of witnessing violence, and I want you to keep in mind that photo that Lakeisha had on the screen. We also know that girls have higher rates of physical and sexual abuse. They have greater mental health needs, greater incidences of self-mutilation, and suicide ideation and attempts. Statewide and locally, we also know that the deeper a girl goes into the juvenile justice system, the greater her need. So I'm going to pick 2 points along the juvenile justice continuum: probation and residential lockup, and just look at 2 factors. Girls at probation in the state of Florida, 1 out of 5 girls who are on probation have histories of sexual and or physical abuse. When we go deeper into the system to where girls are being locked up, 1 out of 2 girls have a history of physical violence and sexual abuse. Back to probation, we know that 3 in 10 girls have a diagnosed mental health issue. When girls go into residential lockup, that number doubles. And it's even higher for the girls on the First Coast, where 3 out of 4 girls who we are sending away from this community and locking them up, 3 out of 4 girls have a diagnosed mental health issue. We wanted to dig deeper and find out what was happening with girls right here from the First Coast. So our research team interviewed girls across the state of Florida who were spending their precious lives behind razor wire to find out what were their pathways into the juvenile justice system. And at the epicenter of girls from this community who were locked up was the significant grief and loss. It was the death of a parent or their caregiver, or it was the incarceration of their parents. They also shared the narrative of the traumatic experiences of abandonment, sexual violence, domestic violence, and living on the streets. The girls that we interviewed from our community were locked up in moderate and high-risk residential placements, most likely because of their high need. I call that the default response. When services are not available in this community, We kid ourselves into believing that when we send our children away to a residential lockup facility, they are going to receive the mental health services that they desperately need. I can tell you, we spend time in those facilities, and that is not happening. In fact, their issues are being further exacerbated, and they are being re-traumatized and oftentimes re-victimized. When we're in those facilities, we also witness the placement of girls who have lower cognitive functioning. They're locked up in residential facilities where staff are absolutely ill-prepared to address their special needs, and they're catching charges inside of those facilities because of their impulsive behavior. They don't even understand what the program requirements are. We're also seeing many of those girls getting waived into the adult system as children because in the state of Florida, the juvenile justice system has 0 specialized programs for girls who are functioning at a lower cognitive level. We also must stop the violent victimization of our children who are being exploited by sex traffickers. The latest Department of Children and Families report showed a 56% increase in the number of victims being identified in the state of Florida, and those victims are predominantly female. But to truly see the portrait of girls in our state and from our local community, we must lift the voices and bring the voices of girls into this room with us. We've asked girls what it is that they want adults who have the power to change what is happening to girls in the justice system, what it is they want you to know. And these are some of the quotes from the girls. We need to be heard and not abused. We are not all bad, all fast. There is a lot behind the girl you cannot see. Just because we look a certain way doesn't mean we are that way. Listen to our story. It will change you. Put yourself in our shoes. You don't know what we've been through. Then you can work with us better. Being a teen girl is not easy at all. We've been through a lot more than people think. We've experienced really bad things. We know things we shouldn't. We want to share it's not easy being a girl. It's not easy being me. Years ago, on my way to Tallahassee, when I was preparing to give testimony before the Florida legislature on behalf of girls who were locked up behind razor wire, I stopped on my way at a program that was in Monticello. That program has since closed. But I met with a girl, and I asked her, she's this brilliant, tiny, little 14-year-old girl who had spent most of her young life in and out of residential lockup facilities. I asked her if she could go to Tallahassee with me. What is it that she would say to people who have the power to truly change what is happening to girls? And her words have stayed with me for decades. What she said is, I would ask them to see me for who I am, not who they think I am. See me for who I can become. I am proud that our community is setting the example of how we can see the girl. Since the Policy Center opened, Duval County has gone from being the county that locked up more girls than Miami, Tampa, and Fort Lauderdale combined to reducing the incarceration rate of girls by 67% in the last 3 years. And on the First Coast, our 5 county areas, we have reduced the incarceration rate of girls by 48%. We are now asking you to help us build on that success by investing in girl-centered, community-based alternatives to incarceration, to support the changes in practices that are locking up girls for technical violations of probation, and supporting specialized services for girls who are victims of trafficking and those who have lower cognitive functioning. I'm asking you to see the girl, because when we invest in girls, we truly invest in our community. Thank you.